Okay, so in this video we're going to talk a little bit about bank reconciliation. This is of Chapter 7. Chapter 7 is about Sarbanes-Oxley and internal control in cash, and so the first part is going to talk a lot about Sarbanes-Oxley, or otherwise known as SOX, and all the internal control rules and the purposes for SOX. There's not a lot of problems there, so I recommend you simply read the chapter or the PowerPoint slides as much as you can. As far as problems goes, well, there's a couple, and I'm going to do them. One of them is the bank reconciliation, and another one is a problem on petty cash, which I'm going to do on another video as well. Okay, so let's do exercise 7-18 on page 351 of chapter 7 in your book, and see how a bank reconciliation is done. Okay, the exercise says the following data were accumulated for the use in recording the bank account of Zex company for May 16. Okay, so cash balance according to the company records at May 31, 2016 was $22,110. Okay, 22,110 is the cash balance according to the records. So we will put that over here. That's the cash balance according to Zex company, 22,110. And so we're trying to reconcile the cash balance of the company to the cash balance of the bank, which is very important. It should always reconcile. If it doesn't reconcile, then you need to find what the difference is before you close the book for that month, right? Cash balance according to the bank statement at May 31, 2016 is $29,650. $29,650 cash balance according to the bank statement. Now, we start off on top because we're going to do various adjustments. There are certain things, certain transactions that the bank has yet to record, which is understandable, so we need to adjust this balance, right? For example, let's say that we sent out a deposit on May 30th, very late at night. Well, then it would be understandable that by May 31st, the bank has not recorded as a deposit yet. So it would be included in this line, deposits not recorded by bank. And that happens all the time, right? Outstanding checks. If we write out a check very late in the month, well, perhaps the bank hasn't cashed it yet. And so we would adjust it here. Now these two entries we would already have recorded it in our books, and rightfully so, because as soon as we write a check and send it out, we're going to record it regardless of whether the bank cashes it or not. We're not going to wait for the bank to do their side of the to cash it or to deposit it, because we know we paid it, we know we issued the check, so we have to go ahead and record it in our books. So that transaction is going to be recorded in our books, but it will not be recorded for the bank, and so we will make an adjustment on the bank side, right? And there's other adjustments that we need to do on our side. For example, bank service charge. Well, we don't know what the bank service charge was, so how can we book it? So we're going to adjust it here on this side. And I'll talk a little bit about things like bank service charges and errors in recording checks from my personal perspective, as far as my experience there. It's a little bit different from what the book states, but we're going to follow the book, especially for the test. Okay, so anyways, it says checks outstanding were $13,875. So checks outstanding $13,875, right? So you're going to deduct that because these are checks that we went ahead and wrote out, and we subtracted it from our balance over here, but the bank hasn't subtracted it yet, right? So we're going to go ahead and subtract it for them for now, just to reconcile, because we know that this is going to happen in the future, probably the following month. It says deposits in transit not recorded by the bank, $6,770. So deposits in transit, 6,770. So we're going to add the deposits in transit because we know that eventually the bank is going to add that to our account, and eventually they're going to deduct outstanding checks. And so eventually, based on all the transactions that we have done, they should have a balance of 22,545. Okay, so that should be the ending balance in the bank. Should all outstanding transactions, deposits and outstanding checks be recorded by the bank, right? So, but there's also adjustments to be done on our side. So we start off with our book balance of 22,110. Now let's see what it says here. It says a check for $50 in payment of an account was erroneously recorded in the check register as $500. So we paid $50, but we recorded $500 by mistake, right? And that could happen because if you put a $500 on both sides, it's still gonna balance, right? So if you put cash, if you credit cash for $500 and your debit account's payable for $500, it's still gonna balance and you're not gonna catch that error. But here is an opportunity to catch that error. So you overstated your payment by $450, right? So let's go ahead and add that to this balance. The $450. So our balance here should be increased by $450. Okay, because the bank cashed $50, not $500. And then transaction number 6 says that bank debit memo for service charges of $15. So we know the bank charges $15 and lowered our account $15. So we're going to deduct that from our account. So we add these up from our side, and it should balance. So if we look over here, now we have a balance, and this is properly reconciled. Okay. Other potential adjustments are charges for non-sufficient fund checks, or charges or the reversal of a check, right? So if we deposit a check, we have gone ahead and credited RGL by that amount, or we've increased our cash balance, I should say. That would actually be a debit, right? We've increased our cash balance by that amount. But what if the check turns out to be non-sufficient funds? Well, the bank isn't going to increase it by that amount. The bank is going to simply not give you that credit. So we need to reverse it, right? So this would be one. There's occasions when the banks receive some payments on our behalf, and we wait for the statements to know what they received and what they credited our account with. So we would then go ahead and post that there. Okay, so once you're done with the statements, you take the bank reconciliation to your accountant in charge of booking them, and the accountant will go ahead and make the entry to correct for the accounting error, and the accountant will go ahead and make the entry to correct for the bank service charges. Okay, so these will disappear eventually, and you're just left with the deposits not recorded yet and outstanding checks, right? You can't do anything about this because this is the bank's issue. The bank has to record it on their side. You already recorded these on this side. So there's no entry that will fix outstanding checks or deposits. There's no error there. We're simply waiting for the bank to post their side of their transaction. We've already done ours on our behalf, and correctly so, right? So one thing that I did want to mention is my experience in the real world is, if you look at these two entries here that we posted down here, that we went ahead and posted down here, my experience in the real world is that we don't wait to finish the bank reconciliation to post these. In my experience, I think it's pretty much a waste of our time. What I remember was, the person in charge of entering these into the books would receive a copy of the bank statement as well. And if I was the person reconciling the bank account, I would simply give that person a call and say, hey, before even doing the bank reconciliation, I would give that person a call and say, hey, have you booked the bank service charges? please do so before I start my bank reconciliation, right? So what does that do? Well, it eliminates this from my bank reconciliation. I no longer have to have that line because I've already booked it. So we try to book as much of these type of stuff before we do the bank reconciliation. That way we have less to reconcile, and it makes more sense, in my opinion, because you want to have your, if you have the information, why not book it before you start your bank reconciliation, right? So if you know what the bank service charge is, why are you going to do the bank reconciliation and then book it? Why don't you just call your accountant or walk to his office, who's probably right next door to you, and say, please book the bank service charges. I'm about to start my bank reconciliation, right? So theoretically speaking, you can have all these done already, and those won't be necessary for your bank reconciliation. But the book doesn't explain it that way, so keep that in mind. You could do it either way. You could either go to your accountant and have them do these before you start your bank reconciliation, or you could do it the way the book says. You start your bank reconciliation, and then based on what you find, you ask your accountant to make these entries, which have to be done because they pertain to this month. Okay, so you cannot avoid making these entries. They must go in this month. But then what this implies is that we probably should be doing another bank reconciliation to make sure that these entries were done properly, right? Whereas if you do it the way that I explained, where you have the accountant do them first, well, you only do one bank reconciliation because now these entries are already in, and if it balances, you know that that accountant posted these properly, right? But keep in mind the way the book explains it, so that's how it'll be tested. What else? So that's about it for bank reconciliations. Remember, there's nothing to be done about these. These can never be adjusted. You're simply waiting for the bank to do their side of the entry. You already did your side of your entry originally, so when you wrote the check out, you already lowered your cash. So there's no more entries to be done. And when you did your deposit here, you already increased your cash. Let's say that was the prior week. So you already did your entries on your side related to this. You're waiting for the bank, and there's no more entries to be done here. These here, you must do the entries either before or after bank reconciliation. The book explains that you do the bank reconciliation first. You identify these, and then you go and do the entries. My personal experience is that I simply used to get the bank statement. I used to call the accountant, who also got a copy of the bank statement, and I would ask the accountant to please book these before I started my reconciliation, and I would save myself, all these lines in the, at least this one is very easy, right? This one is straight from the bank statement. So it takes the accountant approximately 30 seconds to book this one, right? This one maybe not, because this one you might find out, you might identify this one during the bank reconciliation process. So maybe you won't catch this one, okay? And that one you might have to put in the bank reconciliation, then fix it later afterwards. That's fine. But this is way too easy. I would probably recommend you simply book it before you start your bank reconciliation. That way you save yourself that line. However, remember the way the book explains it, and so that's the way it will be asked in the test. Okay, so hope this helped, and I'm going to do one on petty cash my next video. Thank you.